I'm really sorry that you will have to really speed up because you just wasted half of your time. Nice! Okay, so our next speaker is Mark Booth from Datapeak. If I understood correctly, Datapeak is a company providing hosting services for their customer, right?
After a fashion, yes.
Okay, so I leave the room to you. I'm sorry that you will have only 15 minutes for your talk.
That's fine. I'll try to keep it brief. My name's Matt, and I'm a programmer based in Sheffield in the UK. And I co-founded this organisation, the Datapeak Data Cooperative. Now, Sheffield has a pretty active grassroots tech scene, and if you've been to the FOSDEM beer event, you'll know that the IT scene has a pretty severe beer problem. So it's appropriate that this project began in a pub in Sheffield. This pub, which I highly recommend. And I found myself talking to other programmers after tech meetups and discovered that we had some common interests. We were all kind of into hosting things for ourselves. We all had our own websites. Someone was hosting a mailing list, someone was hosting Git repos, that kind of thing. And we all had a shared interest in not being the product. I'm sure everyone in this room in particular is familiar with the concept where if you're not paying for a service, you're the product. And we want to avoid that and avoid data that's kept about us from being used in ways we don't control. So we begin to wonder how we can collaborate with an aim to share the cost of hosting things, so that we don't all have to buy servers. We can just, all use the same one, and then we can share expertise as well, because we're not all experts in all of the things that we want to use. With the eventual goal of, weaning ourselves off of Google entirely and things like that. So, if only there was some kind of organisation we could start, of which we could all be members ourselves, and then we could charge our members fees and then use those fees to pay for the infrastructure and develop the services. And then because user data abuses are a hot topic in the news all the time, then maybe other people outside of our little group would be interested in joining as well. And then we could give all of those members a say in how the organisation is run and give them control on how their data is being used. So let's start a co-op. This is pretty much the dictionary definition. What we wanted to do is pretty much the dictionary definition of a co-op, where we want to be an autonomous association of people who are united voluntarily to meet our common needs with a jointly owned and democratically controlled social enterprise. So we approached an organisation in Sheffield called the SCDG, the Sheffield Co-op Development Group. And they are part of Co-op UK, and they offer advice and help people set up cooperative organisations. So we spoke to those people, and Co-op UK offer a whole bunch of templates for starting companies as cooperatives or charitable trusts. And the Sheffield Development Group were able to sort of narrow down, once we described what we want to do, they narrowed it down to these three kinds of co-ops that they thought might suit us best. The first one, community interest company, I think we dismissed straight away because it comes with some obligations like proving, like doing reports on how you are involving the local community and proving that your company is of value to the local. There was extra administrative overhead we thought that we didn't really need. The multi-stakeholder cooperative, we dismissed, but I don't really remember why. So we eventually settled on forming a consortium. The consortium is a cooperative that is owned and controlled by the people who use the services, which is us. And members get involved by paying for those services. And I've got a note here. I think in mainland Europe, this is sometimes known as a small enterprise cooperative, if that means something. So we decided to start ourselves a cooperative. So we bought a domain, we started a company for, I think it cost us like 150 quid, some nominal amount of money to start the company, and then you can have yourself a company limited by guarantee that can follow the principles of a cooperative. So now I'd like to try and convince you about the pros and cons of starting a co-op yourself. There is some minor drawbacks. There's some amount of admin work you have to do. We have to hold general meetings throughout the year with agendas and things. There's a committee resolution that we have to pass every year, which is to, as the board of directors of the cooperative, we have to pass a resolution to not be audited, because we have under the revenue threshold for that. I don't know who chooses to be audited. Makes no sense to me. We also have to pay an accountant, which you can do the paperwork yourself, I suppose, but who wants to deal with HMRC? But that just does bump up the cost of the organisation. But the benefits, I think, outweigh that. So you have shared responsibility. You join the co-op, hooray, you're no longer doing things on your own. One of the policies we've instituted is if you want to host a service in the co-op, you have to have buy-in from one of the members, which just means that you've got vacation cover and sickness cover and shares the responsibility of maintaining the service. We've got shared accounting. We started a business bank account, obviously, to collect the membership fees and to pay for the hosting and whatnot. And shared expertise, as I said earlier, which is very good because you might have maintained a mail server. I've never maintained a mail server, but we both want mail servers. We can have a CLA, a CAA, a contributor license agreement or copyright assignment agreement for our members. That's quite interesting because the protection that gives you is twofold. It protects the members because without this, in any license squabble, we would only be able to act on violations if the cooperative itself owns the copyright on the code, and it also protects the co-op. Because if you get a contribution from a member that turns out to originate from a proprietary product, then you can shift the liability back to the misbehaving member because they contractually agreed that their contribution was not infringing. There are a couple of unexpected benefits, like as in a technical sense, I'm a director of a company, I can sign people's passports. That was unexpected. And of course, we have a democratic operation, which kind of brings us to our principles as a cooperative. I apologise if this is a bit repetitive. If you caught the LibreHosters talk earlier, we have a bit of overlap. So we give you data with representation, so you get a say in how your data is treated within the organisation. And we give you time to migrate if you're leaving, and we'll make all efforts we can to remove your data after you've left. We promote the dignity of data ownership. So we value your privacy and the control that you have over how you share information with others. We give you the freedom to host yourselves. So any services that we host, you should be able to host on your own as well. That is like one of the best, probably the only way right now where you can migrate your data somewhere else. You just fire up a new instance of our services somewhere else and import your data. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And obviously all of our services are free and open source, so that enables that. And we also try to federate and interoperate wherever possible, like with our Mastodon instance. We can interact with people on other Mastodon instances, which is good. We rely on open standards, and if a standard is open, an open source implementation of that standard is pretty much guaranteed to follow. So some technical hurdles that we had. I mentioned earlier we're not sysadmins, we're programmers. With our powers combined, we make just about one barely competent sysadmin. I've developed a lot of respect for system administrators in this project, so good work, guys. We started out on this adventure using Docker. We wanted to break all of the services down into smaller components and do it right. But in the end, it didn't really work out for us. I don't think Docker was really solving any problems that we had in terms of scalability and whatnot. So eventually we got rid of that, and then we are now managing VMs using Ansible. If you've used Ansible before, it's just YAML files that tell the VM how to behave. We added a single sign-on feature, which was quite interesting. So being able to log into one of the application and then have that authenticated session follow you to the other applications that we host is a really nice feature for users, but it turns out almost no applications support it. And this actually prompted a move from Nginx to Apache, because Apache has a better single sign-on plugin called ModMelon, which we use, and then that fronts a lot of our services behind that. The two-factor authentication, again, is a great feature for users. It gives users confidence in the security and whatnot, but some applications have problems with this, in particular if you're using a mobile app to speak to any of our hosted services. It's not always easy, it's not always, in particular my IRC client is a real pain to use with two-factor authentication. So we ended up making that optional for now, but hopefully in the future we can make it, we can allow users to make it mandatory for their accounts. And email. On my notes here, it says big, scary, important, easy to get wrong. And a few of us have made attempts at hosting our own email services, and again, it can't be said enough, we're programmers, not sysadmins. We've always been scared away. So what we'll probably do is outsource that to another small cooperative in Sheffield. Hopefully we can get those guys on board to help us out with that. And I'm aware that I was late starting, so I guess I'll wrap up there. If you want to discover more about us, we're at darkpeak.org. You can chat to us on IRC. I'm M. Booth in the Dark Peak channel. Thank you very much for listening.
So you're a magician, you did it. So thank you, and again, I apologize on behalf of the organization team. Now, if there is any question, yes.
I have two questions. Number one, can you join if you're from Manchester?
Yes, we've got a member in Edinburgh, and until not long ago, we had a member in Norway. We convinced him to move to Sheffield, though.
Great. And number two is a bit more complicated. So a lot of your talk focused on the sort of organising model of the cooperative. How do you think that, or what principles from the cooperative organising model do you think can be applied to open source development or free software development communities? Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I think they're kind of in separate. I think the two are kind of orthogonal, because for open source project development, quite a good model is the benevolent dictator for life model, right? You have someone who's in charge of the vision for the software project, but that project is not responsible for other people's data, right? So if you're a member of an organization that is dealing with your data, you want more democratic control over it. It's better for users, I think.
Any questions? How do you do SSO with email? You don't do email?
We don't do email yet, no.
So there are people in the UK at the moment trying to sort of centralized planning for hackspaces. Have you talked to them? Because you sort of probably have very similar goals and ideas to them.
I have not, I'm afraid, but I will look into it. Thanks.
So why not Docker?
Yeah, so I didn't go into too much detail then, but we found it, it was, for one, it was impenetrable for newcomers to the organization. Not everyone's got experience with Docker and the necessary steps you have to take to get up and running with it. And we got ourselves into a situation where production deployments of the infrastructure was done from a single member's laptop. So we wanted to maybe this is too risky, let's make it something, let's base it on something that more people are familiar with out of the box, which a lot more people in my experience have had experience with Ansible and things like Ansible.
Yeah, come to the Libre Hosters Matrix channel, and we can discuss about Kubernetes and these kind of things also if you're interested.
Okay.
If there is no more question, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to give constructive feedback on the FOSDEM website.